And so, get my agenda out. First, we're going to discuss operating budget, and then we're going to, or the aspirational, and then we're going to discuss federal programs and go on to nutritional services. So 3 years ago, we started a new process of how we approach funding of schools. The community asked us to put into context, if we could ask for everything in the world, what would it look like to fund everything? And so we started this aspirational aspect. It's not a budget. We're not passing a budget at this moment in time. We're passing kind of our priorities, our intent of what we would like to see, what it would cost as the community advocates, and as kind of a long-term strategy for the community and us of what it takes to educate our students in the district and to fund it into completeness. So I know kind of as we change the system and change the culture of having a true discussion of what it takes to truly educate our children and to fund a district to ensure that we educate our students. So to just as a reminder is that when we pass this, it's more of a recommendation of what we're looking at, what our priorities are, what our goals are, and what's the intent. And then after the mayor files his budget by the 1st of May, according to the charter, he presents that with the actual budget allocation number. Then it goes to council. Council makes amendments or improvements to that budget. And then after they pass that, it comes to us, and then we finalize an actual budget, a budget that we're passed by law. That's our duty to do, and that's where we really go through the details of what does the budget for the next process looks like. And so we found this to be very successful in the past couple of years because we were able to have a full conversation of what our intent and our priorities are. That starts from our retreat process, and then also see what it looks like that it doesn't become this fully fund, tension that has been in the past. We're really focused on what are we focusing at this moment in time? How do we look towards the future of how we invest certain things and what the investment looks like? At the retreat, we had set several priorities. Our first priority was, whoops, I have to get my notes up, sorry, y'all. Was employee compensation. Help me, Dr. Battle.
Employee compensation, continuity of our federally funded initiatives.
SEL.
That's the third one. Hang on, let me just pull them up.
Thank
no
you.
need of. Here we go.
There we go. So those are our 4 priorities: employees' compensation, continuity of federally funded initiatives, academic and SEL integration, and operational improvement and school support. I want to say in the formal things, so I was going to give a layman's term aspect of it. And these priorities really not have changed much over the past 2 or 3 years. We really feel as a board that it's employees, that we invest in our employees. That's something that we had started beforehand, and that, thank you to the mayor, has done some very unprecedented investments, particularly starting last year with our teachers, making them the best paid teachers of the state, and working on now to continue that conversation with the rest of the staffing over the next strategic years. So we understand this has been a tough year for everyone, particularly our employees, given the amount that we are in the current academic environment. The economy and economic environment of inflation, of the cost of living coming out of a pandemic, the unintended consequences of a pandemic. We truly understand what it takes to live in Nashville, and as Nashville is trying to grow and improve, the cost it takes to live. And we really want our employees to hopefully stay and live in Davidson County, and we know that the compensation has to do that. So that is a big priority for the board that we have discussed at previous retreats this year and last year. We intend to continue to advocate with that, with the mayor's office, with the yes, the state legislature, and with this council of that's our #1 goal. Also continue federal funded initiatives continuity of that, the investment that we made, particularly in academic and SEL integration, coming out of the pandemic, making sure we can keep things like promising scholars, the focused tutoring, and things like that. And then in operational improvements in school supports, that we continue to make sure that we have the environment and culture set. So I know the understanding that, particularly to our support employees, that's really important for them to have a living wage to do that, and we understand and agree with that intent, and that's one of the things we hope to advocate for, is to make sure that as we help have teachers be improved, and that's the purpose of the pay study, to also make sure that we're doing it with data and with information to make sure that happens, and to have that continued conversation with the mayor's office and with the council. Then important that our support staff also have the ability to live and to be able to work here in Davidson County, and we understand the intent of that, and to make sure that they can be a part of our community, not only to work, but also to live in. And so I'll move into opening discussion about the operating budget, well, not operating budget, about our aspirational priorities that we want to present to the mayor and to the council, saying this is our intent as we go into the budget season, and as we go to that, we can hope continue to advocate to make sure that we continue to show the employees that they are, but more importantly, that we were able to educate our children and have the culture of educating our children in keeping with the success of academic growth we have, particularly coming out of the pandemic. So I will entertain a motion to I'll entertain a motion to continue with our budget priorities for the 22-23 year and our aspirational priorities and goals going into the next fiscal year.
So moved.
Okay, second, discussion. Yes, Ms. Masters.
I have a question sort of around this whole process. So we had a retreat, and then the aspirational budget was first presented to us on March 8th.
Yes.
So since then, having had additional committee meetings among the board, but then also having had 3 stakeholder meetings, and I know the one I attended, there weren't any questions at the end, but I hear there were questions and conversation at the end of the others. I am just wondering how, if at all, the budget presented to us on March 8th, if it has been adjusted in any way or any changes that have been made to that according to the community input now as we get to the version that we're about to pass and send on to the mayor.
There hasn't been any major changes, just because these are overall intent and goals. Really, the details will come after May 1st, when we really have an idea of what the allocation will be and what the intent of Metro Council plans to do it, and then we'll be able to implement very specific questions and answer those as we do the line item allocations for each individual thing. But there wasn't any disagreement or concern of our priorities or what's on, or how we should approach our budget and the lens we should shape our budget for the upcoming year.
So not to belabor it, but what I hear you saying is that what we're presenting to the mayor is a really sort of a high-level, best-case scenario, also with the understanding that we have the intention of looking at the support staff pay study and wanting that to become a part of it. But it's not as though we're submitting a line-by-line, really specific budget at this point. Yeah.
Correct. Yes, that's one process we intently changed from, because it was a hard discussion of how do you have continuity of services, make sure you're doing maintenance of effort, what you need, particularly as, cost of living increase. As I say, our own budget has a cost of living increase as gas goes up, cost of paper goes up, shipping goes up. And so understanding what it takes to maintain, and then going into that of, once that's funded, how do we focus our new revenues or redirect revenues to things that we need to see fit going after the allocation.
Thank you. I mean, I know you just said that. I just wanted you to say it again in another way. So, thank you.
Oh, I think I'll go.
I was just going to say, so just to make it clear to everybody, the pay study that we are waiting to hear back from, that the mayor commissioned that, so those results will come to him first, and then we will get to see them as well. That will not change our priority of having employee compensation at the top of our list. So I think it bears repeating that people keep hearing us say, well, we're waiting to see what the employee compensation study says for our support staff. We know that our support staff needs an increase. We know that. We have over 2,000 of our own employees who are living below the living wage for Nashville right now. We need to bring them up. So I think it's important for us to note that, yes, we're talking about this pay study. Yes, we are saying we want to see the results from that, but it will not change our commitment to putting employee compensation at the top of our list of things that we want to have in our budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Alvar.
Thank you. In regards to the pay study, I believe it is probably the hope of most of the board that we encourage a living wage among those new dollar amounts. I have voiced my support in us having like a baseline amount that we have within that. But do we have a timeline of when we think that will be done? Have we received any updates of when they believe from your meeting last week of when that support study will be completed and information will be provided to us?
I have not received a specific date.
Okay. May I ask if Dr. Battle has received any specific dates or information?
No, we've not received a specific date with that information.
I would like to just ask that if we do receive that information, I would like for us to have that before it's announced publicly. That would be ideal. And so I would like for us to make sure that we try to get that so that we can prepare that information.
Okay, I'll put that request in.
I think, thank you. I think my only question is around maybe advocacy to the mayor, just how should we be talking about this with council members? How should we be talking about it if we engage with the mayor's office? It was just, it was different last year having an education liaison there, and since we don't have that, how are we saying, when it's almost second nature for the council and then just neighbors to ask, how much are we asking for this year? What will be our maybe, not generic response, but what will be our singular response and what are we asking for? Because the way I've been trying to phrase it is just, hey, we're focused on priorities. There are a lot of different investments we can make. We're trying to be mindful, just trying to make sure that people understand that this could be a moving thing considering what we receive. But how do we want to talk about this?
I think the more important, that's when we talk to the council members for their own district and talk to members of the Budget and Finance Committee and the Education Committee to see these are our priorities, and ensure that as commitments have made for new funding will come to education, that those commitments are upheld, and hold them accountable and saying that this is what our intent is, that we need new revenue to help substantiate our first priority of employee compensation and the rest of the other three priorities. And I think that's one thing we have to stress, that continuing the same intent and the same collaboration that we had last year in communication, and that we're both in communication within the next really 8 weeks of what that looks like, and having those conversations with our council counterparts with that in there.
Now, I don't remember what budget cycle it was, but we actually received a document that had talking points for each something. Did I imagine that? Anybody remember that? Just me? It's just me. You remember that?
That was before, but it was not this year. It was.
But we've had it. I think
Had
that's
that
the
before.
better, if we could, I'm sorry. Are you glaring at me? Okay.
That's the Andre.
If we could get that process done
Yeah, like
again.
a budget brief with, we're waiting to see what the board adopted, but we can develop that and send that to y'all
I think
to
just
look at.
to your point, to be consistent in how we speak to council and others about it. Thank you.
I don't know, one person saying 25 million and then somebody else saying 10, and then it's like, well, really, we need 50. Well, no, we only, or we don't, you just
Ask for all the money.
We want the whole 2 billion. Yeah, the whole 2 billion. Just
We're talking aspirational, right?
Yeah, just give us the whole 2 billion. That's what we want. So, Roger.
I guess to that point, until that time, I believe the place where we would probably find the best talking points at this current time, if you get any questions, is probably the supplemental packet we got the last meeting. But that is more than just a couple talking points, which we appreciate. We thank you, staff. But it's basically a directory for us. In this presentation, I believe there is a slide, and I'm hoping I'm correct, that has the continuation budget list out.
Continuity of operations.
Thank you. Boom, slide before. It's like, what is that? I appreciate it. So I just want to make sure we have some phrasing correct, once again, in this hope of having the same language and, talking in step with each other, and also in the community. This continuity of operations is, I think, the right step for us to ask for, because it includes our step increases and other things that we're considering as a baseline pay or amount that we have to have from the city. But I want to make sure that we're not saying that this is fully funded, but that this is basically our baseline of appropriation. And that fully funded, of course, would be the dream cycle of everything within that aspirational budget. That would be if we were completely fully funded. But so we are asking, I just want to make sure everybody is seeing it and that we're all on the right page. So nothing has changed on this from the community conversations or stakeholder conversations. That will all change within that aspirational budget items that we've been discussing, depending on whatever new revenue we have, but that this is the baseline amount that we're requesting.
Yes, we have to have this amount to function as a district, like
Continue.
nothing new. This is just to maintain the status quo exactly like it is. That is the minimum amount that we need to have for us to function as a district.
Got it.
Not meet our aspirations that we are hoping for. So it does not include the increased amount for our support staff right now. It's just yeah.
Among many things.
I worry some people see in the number and they think that's the number.
Like this is all that it costs.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to take an opportunity again to commend this board for your belief that step increases should be a part of our continuity of operations budget. And I know sometimes we talk through that and pass that quickly, but that is a significant shift in the way in which we build the budget. I'm just believing step increases should be an annual expectation for our employees. So thank you all for your commitment there.
Are we ready to vote? To recommend this focus investment to the mayor and to the council? All in favor? None opposed? All right, it passes. All right, next to federal programs and grant budget. This is a 2003-2022 strategic investment federal programs and grant fund. This is where the Esser funds are. I'll hand over to Mr. Henson to give a brief description of the federal programs and grants fund that we need to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Player-Peters. There are two additional budgets that the board is required to approve. They are required to be kept in separate funds, and as was indicated, the first one that we'll be discussing would be the Federal Programs and Grants Fund budget. Some of you may know that the federal fiscal year runs October 1st to September 30th, which is different than our fiscal year of July 1 to June 30th. So these are very early estimates. One thing I also want to point out is these are all flow-through funds. These are funds that, according to the grant or whatever the program is, must be approved as far as how what will be purchased with these particular grants. And so they're Tennessee is a reimbursable state, and so we're required to first plan, receive approval on what we want to use the funding for, in most cases from the Tennessee Department of Education, then actually spend the dollars first, and then request reimbursement through the state's E-Plan reimbursement system after the fact. And so this is our best estimate of what we believe that we will spend from July 1 to June 30th for next fiscal year, realizing again that the federal fiscal year is different. And then if you'll look on the far right column, you'll notice that there are some asterisks. If you look at the bottom of the page, we still have not received our allocations for those particular grants from the Tennessee Department of Education at this time. So these are best estimates as we have them, knowing that these will change, just like many of these will change over time. And then you also have over in the right column some letters which correspond again to the bottom of the page. These are relating to the Esser funding. Just as a reminder, when the grant terms end, Esser 2 ends June 30th of 2023, and Esser 3 ends June 30, 2024. You can see what those total grant amounts were and are. And then again, as a reminder, the column that you're seeing projected would be the estimated amount that we believe would be actually spent July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023. And so with that, again, knowing that this is all flow-through dollars and it's still very early in the process, open it up to any questions that anyone may have regarding any of the grants or the process.
Ms. Tyler?
So I know that the Esser's money is terming out in 23 and then 24. Just to be clear, we have to have already spent ours and requested reimbursement before that date. Is that correct? Or do they have to have given, how soon before that date do we have to have spent the money in order to be able to request it back?
I'm not familiar with the particulars, and I don't know if, Sean, if you or Allison know. Sean McGuire and Allison Lerma from our Federal Programs and Grants Office, they will have the details.
That's correct. It does have to be expended by the drop dead date, which is what we call it.
And then just for my knowledge, do they have a timeline on when they're required to reimburse us by?
No, not that we've seen thus far, no.
Thanks.
Questions? Ms. Masters?
It's not a question. I just want to illuminate for anyone who's paying close attention that these are very much allocated to very specific things. For example, the school turnaround program with Jerry Baxter Middle School that we discussed a few meetings ago. I just want to be sure that anyone following along understands it's not $950,000 we can spend. Yeah. So here's the question. Is there anywhere on here where there's money that we can just do whatever we want with it?
Not that I'm aware, no. As you said, a lot of this, if not all of this, is very prescriptive in nature as far as what it can be spent on and the approvals that are required in advance of actually spending the money and then requesting reimbursement. So it is very prescriptive. And again, those ones with asterisks, the Title I, the IDEA, the Carl Perkins, those are all coming to us from the state allocations, and these are our best estimates of those particular amounts. They're usually the largest pot of money in the Federal Programs and Grants Fund until the Esser funding came in.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
This might be a good time to just remind the public and our board members that we had a work session 2 weeks, this past Friday. Oh, goodness, time is.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was the Friday.
It was 2 weeks ago. Okay, goodness.
It was the
okay.
Friday before.
We had a
yeah.
work session 2 weeks ago. We reviewed.
April Fool's Day.
We did, yes. We reviewed our current budget, including contracts both through federal grant and from our operating budget. Board, our colleagues, if you were not able to attend, there's a nice thick packet back there for you if you would like to review. But if anyone was able to find even $1 that we could spend differently, please speak now, especially if we could find 25 million.
Please, yeah.
I found more things I want to buy.
Yeah, that's the thing. So just know that there is a packet back there if you were not able to join us. And then if at some point you have a recommendation, we always are open to having a discussion.
Great. Thank you. Yes, I love hidden pots of money somewhere. All right, I will entertain a motion for approval of the Federal Programs and Grants Fund.
So moved.
Motion is second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously, if I can articulate my words today. And then next, we have the Nutritional Fund Service. Nutritional Service Fund. Mr. Henson?
Thank you again. As you all may remember from previous years, this is a self-supporting enterprise fund. Again, it's required to be held separately in a separate fund from the operating budget, as well as separate from the federal programs and grants budget. Even though the largest majority of funding does come through the federal government, you can see under revenue, again, the largest source of funding would be USDA meal reimbursements. You can see what that amount is. The largest portion of the expenses, of course, would be labor costs as well as food purchases. Just a little bit of background, we have been operating under a federal waiver, as you all probably know, which allows all students to be able to be served at no cost. That waiver that we've been operating under, the federal waiver, also has a higher reimbursement rate for each meal that's served. And so that has helped this fund with that higher meal reimbursement rate. However, the federal waiver is supposed to end on June 30th. And so we don't know if that might be extended. It currently has not. But that will cause some issues with this particular fund because the federal reimbursement rates will go down from what they currently are. And then we will also go back to being a community eligibility program district, where the majority of our schools will continue to operate providing meals at no cost to our students, but there will be some that will have to go back to the old free and reduced lunch waiver system, as well as actual paid meals. And so we're still waiting on final word as it relates to that federal waiver. But that has really helped this particular fund and helped us to be able to continue to serve nutritious meals to all of our students. The other piece that I'll point out is that the wage cost for our Nutrition Services Fund, of course, has increased somewhat significantly over time, particularly with the implementation of the $15 per hour minimum wage. The USDA meal reimbursements don't keep up with wage costs of that nature. And so at some point, we need to be looking at when there is a cost of living adjustment given, a step increase given for employees, that there is potentially separate funding that comes directly into this fund for that purpose. Previously, they have been able to absorb the cost of any cost of living adjustment or step increase, but you can see they're spending down their fund balance with this particular budget. And a lot of that is relating to wage increases that we've experienced, as well as the potential, as we know, what's happening with inflation, with just the cost of food and the cost of materials and supplies. And so they are planning to spend down some of their fund balance, but wanted to point that piece out as we continue with our advocacy efforts as it relates to employee compensation. This is a separate fund and needs to be treated as such as it relates to any additional funding provided for cost of living adjustments or step increases.
Thank you very much. And I think this is a good point to the class that we made a commitment last year for $15 an hour. Was that last year we did that? Yes, last year. A previous year, we made the commitment to make sure our employees are paid $15 an hour, and I think that is something that's very important to us, that we maintain that, and we set that as a value of it, and we hope that we can talk to our congressman and advocate for the extension of waivers and to our federal employees, our federal elected officials, the importance of this. I know late Chair Anna Shepard was one of her big passions to make sure that there wasn't debt, school lunch debts, and this has prevented that from happening in the past. And I hope we can continue that kind of legacy of hers of making sure every child has access to a full meal. And so hopefully our federal government will continue to expand that aspect, and more importantly, we know that kids cannot learn when they're hungry, and also that we as a district has a priority of making sure our employees are compensated at bare minimum, and at the federal minimum wage, that's only at a mere $7 an hour. So questions, comments? Oh, Abigail, sorry. Ms. Tyler.
So I know before the federal waiver for both breakfast and lunch happened, we had one that was just for breakfast. Is there a possibility that that would be something we could go back to and offer breakfast for free to every school, regardless of their population?
Yes, and that is the plan moving
Okay.
forward for next year, even if the federal waiver were to not be extended.
Okay.
The plan will be to continue to offer breakfast at no cost to all students, regardless of where they go to school.
And would we be reimbursed for that from the federal government, or would we bear the brunt of that cost?
Spencer Taylor, who's Executive Director of Nutrition Services.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. That cost, we would incur some costs with that. It would be under a provision, and a percentage of those meals would be at the free reimbursement rate, but those that could not be covered under the reimbursement rate, we would have to bear the brunt of that cost, because that's how that provision works.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Elrod?
Thank you. So how much are we believing will be needed to supplement those the additional monies that we'll need to supplement the $15 an hour at our current $15 an hour rate?
I think I have that. Hold on just a moment. I thought I did and I don't. Spencer, you're going to have to help me out again if you remember. You remember the additional cost? 2.7 for the $15 per hour minimum wage? $2.7 million for the $15 per hour minimum wage. And then, of course, any additional increase for a cost of living adjustment would be dependent upon what that actually is, what percentage COLA is actually given.
I have a follow-up to that. My follow-up to that are these conversations taking place along with the pay study conversations about nutritional services? Because they are at the $15 amount, but if we're already going to need to pay them additional potentially because of this pay study, or in response to that pay study, that at 2.7 might need to be more. Are we having those conversations within the pay study?
Yes, those conversations are happening, as well as the conversations around no-cost meals for every student regardless of the waiver.
So are there any, do we have any specific, barriers or any issues with making sure that we include that 2.7 to be whatever we think that additional money is? Like when we're asking for the 2.7, are we saying it's 2.7 only, or is it 2.7 plus whatever's in the pay study?
It's a part of the market analysis itself. What Mr. Henson was referencing is that historically it's been a self-sufficient operation, so we've got to work out the logistics or the mechanics around what that would look like to make sure that they can continue to sustain and pay their employees based upon the pay study results.
And just one more point of clarification, the $15 per hour minimum wage is already being given, of course, and so the program has been absorbing that expense, that additional cost. And so I'm assuming when the pay study, when it's going to be taking into consideration the current wages of our food service or nutrition services employees, which would include that $15 per hour amount. But when the council, and we're very appreciative that the council did give the funding for the $15 per hour minimum wage. There was funding provided for the operating fund, but not additional funding provided for this particular separate fund. And it's sort of an anomaly out there with enterprise funds because it's dependent upon federal USDA reimbursements. They can't just create their own additional revenue by raising prices or something of that nature. And so that's just something we just need to keep at the forefront. Discussed it with Ms. Player-Peters as far as the advocacy that's needed with our Metro Council partners as it relates to making sure that additional funding goes into this particular fund for that purpose.
Because they're currently paying for that with their, in essence, savings fund. What is the fund balance?
Sorry.
Go ahead, correct?
They've been able to absorb it mainly through the federal waiver, which allowed for the higher meal reimbursement amount, which is, again, is supposed to expire June 30th.
When we were discussing, have they been using their fund balance? What have they been spending that on?
Now, this particular budget for next year will spend down some of their fund balance.
Okay, that's where I got it, okay.
This particular fund did receive Esser funding back when we were no longer in school for the last quarter of 2020 and then the first part of the next year. And so we were paying all of our employees, but students weren't in school to be able to purchase meals, even though we did provide meals to students. And so there was an infusion of funding through Esser to this particular fund, and so it would need to be something akin to that, something similar to that, where additional subsidy or funding would come into this fund for that purpose.
Okay, got it. That's where I got confused, is where that was being spent. Thank you.
Mr. Little?
Yeah, and this is more of a broad question. Thank you, Ms. Player Peters, for putting this together, and Ms. Chairwoman Buggs for giving us the budget and going through it. My question: what happens to surplus funds when we don't spend it, with vacancies? If we had bus drivers and teachers where we didn't fill every spot, is the budget created to pay for every position that's in the district outside of vacancies?
Typically, I assume you're referring to the operating budget since you mentioned bus drivers. Typically, with those funds, we do take into consideration some amount of vacancy because we know with as many employees as we have, we're going to have some vacancy and turnover throughout the year. And so not every single position is going to be fully staffed for the entire fiscal year. But if we have those kinds of situations or instances, then that funding will end up in our fund balance at the end of the year. And fund balance is a combination of both what our revenues do as far as projection to actual, as well as our expenditures projection to actual. And so if we have funding that's left over from vacancies, it will stay with us and it will be in our fund balance reserve.
All right. Oh, Ms. Tyler?
Yeah, one last question, and Ms. Elrod, I was listening carefully, but I'm not sure if what I'm asking is the same thing as what you asked, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating you. When, in our operational budget, when we request our money for support staff, when we're thinking of those numbers, are we including the potential of needing to pay more to nutrition services because they are a separate budget, but in order to meet the kind of baseline living wage that we've been talking about all along, if we need to give them a pay raise to meet that, and we don't have enough in nutritional money, are we keeping that in mind when we're thinking about operational budget dollars for support staff specifically? Are we including nutrition services there, or are we thinking of them separately?
I'll say a combination of both. So when we discuss understanding that, when we talk to them as a whole, make sure that nutritional services is included in that. But also, in the past, we have taken money from operational into, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Henson, into the nutritional service to cover a cost. But ideally, we would want that to be a separate allocation because it's one fund to another fund, because this fund is separate from our operating budget fund. And so ideally, we want to make sure that it's inclusive, that nutritional services included as an all support staff. And that when we, in the future, advocate for funding, that's included and directly allocated to nutritional services.
I just don't want us to end up in a situation where our support staff from the operational budget ends up getting a raise, but the nutritional services stay stagnant. And I don't think that's going to, Dr. Battle's shaking her head, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's good to know. That's perfect. That's good to know. And I do think also, yes, I am not advocating for taking on some of the burden into operational. I do think that nutrition services should be self-sufficient. I would hope for that. That is clearly the goal. But I just want to make sure that we're covering our bases.
Yes, and we'll be very explicit in that discussion.
And I know it's 4:40, but do we have vacancies in the nutrition services department?
We do.
And when I think about it, because I'm trying to say, how do we keep our employees working? When I think about bus monitors and, it ends when the school year ends. Most times, some of them take around. Would there ever be opportunities for some of our MNPS employees to transition into other roles during the summer where there may be vacancies? I think
I'll defer to Dr. Battle. I know that obviously we have the Promising Scholars program that's going on for the entire month of June, which would allow for another month, but
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Now with the Promising Scholars Program, most positions are available over the summer as well. And if I'm not mistaken, we have a number of nutrition services employees in particular who are 11 and 12-month employees as well. So those opportunities do exist and have previously existed. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the nutritional funds budget, nutritional service. Sorry, y'all. Motion to entertain to approve the nutritional service fund.
I make the motion that we approve it.
Is there a second? All in favor? All in favor? All right, it is approved. I'll make a couple of closing remarks. First, I want to acknowledge Mr. McGuire, a former colleague of mine that worked in the finance department in the mayor's office. I'm glad that we were able to have him on our team to have the expertise of finance from the Metro government onto our side. So thank you, Mr. McGuire, for joining our team, and I really appreciate that. And I also want to give a point of accommodation to Mr. Spencer Taylor, who returned from his leave. He was a military reservist, and he's back from his military leave. So thank you for that, and thank you for your service to our country for doing that. My father worked for the Department of Army. He was a civilian for over 35 years, so I understand exactly what you do, and thank you for that. And but thank you also for coming and doing the other part of public service. So it's not taken for granted, so thank you. And that's all I have for now. So this meeting is now adjourned.
Hit that little hammer. All right.